Welcome to a special presentation of Occasional Randomness. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me, as always, is my fellow co-host, somebody who loves a good family story, Jason Johnson.
You forgot about me, Eric. You forgot about me. Or at least that's the. Anyway, yeah.
More,
Let's do a
yeah,
podcast.
more on that here in a minute. Yeah, so this time around, we're discussing the sadly only 44-minute long Disney Plus special presentation of The Punisher, One Last Kill. And as always, if you like what we do here, please give us a like or a review, or better yet, help spread the word and let people know about us. We would appreciate it very much.
Please and thank you.
All right, so let's just jump on into the brief recap. This is a brief show. So, Frank Castle, otherwise known as the brutal vigilante The Punisher, kills members of the Nucci crime family who are believed to be the last criminals involved in the deaths of his family. The Nucci's former territory in New York City's Little Sicily neighborhood becomes overrun with crime. Frank, coincidentally, lives also in Little Sicily, an apartment complex where he's haunted by hallucinations of people from his past. After locking up his Punisher gear, Frank goes to his family's graves to kill himself, but is stopped by an hallucination of his daughter Lisa. Frank walks aimlessly through the chaotic streets, haunted by an apparition of his military friend Curtis Hoyle. Remember him from the Punisher TV show. He is cornered by the crime lord Ma Nucci, the matriarch of the Nucci crime family, who seeks revenge for Frank's murder of her husband and 3 sons. Nucci reveals that she has placed a bounty on Frank's head, attracting every criminal in the area. And then some, which we'll get into here in a minute. Returning to his apartment, he sees a vision of his friend Karen Page, who scolds Frank for his failures, but also consoles him. And then a small army of criminals enters the apartment complex and attacks residents looking for Frank. When his room gets set on fire, Frank escapes and ruthlessly dispatches criminals, fighting his way to the rooftop before jumping off. He has an opportunity to pursue Nucci, but instead decides to protect local shop owner Dre, his wife Debbie, and the daughter Charlie. After the fighting is over, Charlie gives Frank a paper rose, which he puts on Lisa's grave. Frank decides then that he still has work to do as the Punisher. And finally, in the last scene, Frank returns to the streets with a new Punisher costume and arsenal. He stops a group of thugs from attacking innocent people and kills the leader. The end. ... Question mark.
Question mark.
All right, so that was undoubtedly, I think, the most intense Punisher episode or presentation yet. But what do you think about it? Was it not long enough? Was it just right? Too much action? Not enough action? Way too much action?
Yeah. So, um, as I usually try to do for something I'm really interested in, and of course we both knew that it was Punisher. We were watching it, right? Yeah, I went into it blind. Like I may have seen the trailer. I can't remember if I did. I watched as little of it as possible, but I may have dodged that. So, with that in mind, I will say I definitely enjoyed it. Like it was a great setup for I think what's going to take us into the future of the Punisher, right? But it just wasn't what I was expecting, and that's not a bad thing. It just was. I have it in my head filed under quote how the Punisher got his groove back.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting, and we'll probably dive into some of this, but I was expecting it to be like picking up right after Frank walked out of the or escaped from the vigilante, on the Fisk Island there at the port and the vigilante task force, and what he was doing in the background while Karen and Matt are fighting Kingpin and the rest of season 2. And instead, it's like you almost could just assume that this picked up right after Frank's previous Punisher show. Like I don't know that you had to have it, the Daredevil part. So it that confused me. But as we'll kind of walk into as we walk through our thoughts on the actual sections of the episode, it was pretty epic for a Punisher standalone. So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I would even say I loved it because I had to watch it not had to, but I watched it again to fill out some of the notes here. So I took a little longer pauses on things, and I came to appreciate it a little more the second time around. Yeah, I do wish it would have been longer, maybe like a movie length, but it didn't really have to be like a series of episodes, like a mini series or even a new series. And that really wasn't what John Bernthal wanted to tell anyway and get across. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it could be at a maybe the first part of a series if you wanted to kind of use this as like a pilot and then kick off with something new. But we'll get there as we go. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and yeah, I had no idea. I watched the trailer and it didn't really explain anything, which is fine. Yeah, and yeah, I was hoping like you, it would say what happened after Daredevil season one, him stuck in the cage, he escapes in the closing, yeah, whatever, mid credit scene. I was like, oh, cool. What's he doing now? Well, I guess this is what he was doing now. Although we'll talk later about where's this really fit, but whatever. Um, but to get back to the show, I kind of wish if it had been a little bit longer, they could have delved more into the PTSD or psychological stuff that he was going through. I mean, they did for how long it was and what they devoted to it. It got the point across, but I think they could have maybe mined that a little more. And then we get to the last half of the episode, literally the last half of the episode, which reminded me of the 2012 Dread film. That was the Judge Dredd version with Carl Urban as Judge Dredd, who's fighting his way up through a building full of thugs who are trying to kill him. But here, Frank's trying to get out of a building full of thugs trying to kill him. But other than that, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, funny enough, I had that exact same thought. Right, there was. I don't remember what year that was that the judge. Oh, you said 2012. I feel like there was like two or three Siege movies, right? Siege the Building movies that came out that same year, and this definitely felt like Bernthal was like, "Hey, I want to do that, but with the Punisher."
So yeah, let's just kind of jump in here to the half of the show with dialogue and stuff. So we open up with a scene with a homeless Marine vet and his dog out walking the streets. And he gets terrorized by a bunch of, I guess they're a street gang or just hoodlums or people out there doing crime because there's no more mafia to take care of them. And, they kill the guy's dog. And when that happens, when you kill a man's dog, that it's never going to work out for you in the end. Yeah. Just ask John Wick how he dealt with that one.
Right? Yeah, in a show that it's the Punisher, right? We knew it was going to be full on violence. Uh, this scene was more intense than I was expecting. Right? I mean, you can kill all the people, the thugs, all you want. I can take a civilian getting hurt to set up a Punisher storyline or whatever. But man, a dog, and it was like not just like whatever. He's like, nah, here's a truck. So it's like, ugh.
I know. Is that like a commentary on us or society or whatever? That yeah, it's like oh yes, some person got killed. Oh yeah, okay, fine. But it's like oh man, that little dog. What? but but yeah, I had the same feeling. I'm like oh now you did it.
Yep.
Like,
That that guy doesn't need to lead through the episode. Is basically where I was at that point. I'm like, nah, he needs to go.
yeah. I mean, I half expected Francis to show up right then and shoot him, but yeah,
Well, and that's an interesting point, right? It's because, as you said, that's our opening, and we don't know where Frank is right now. Like, is he still out there punishing? And we find out pretty quick that's not the case. But because we didn't know that at that point in the episode or show, whatever you want to call it, I was the same way. I'm like, oh, he's fixing to like this guy's fixing to not make it. It's like, no, Frank's like not dealing with any of that right now. So
yeah,
it's kind
which
of
which leads into the next bit of here's where Frank is, and he's pretty much stuck in his apartment dealing with everything that's ever led him up to the point where he's at today. Yeah, he's exercising, I guess maybe to get get out of his system. He's popping ibuprofen like Pez. He's just having a bad day like he usually has, right? Yeah. Then he
yeah.
winds up tearing down his murder board in his apartment and locking up all his guns. They're like, okay, what's going on? Is he quitting? Like, how, that's not his nature, right? But then we learn later that when he goes to a local coffee shop, that from the newscast, that apparently he's killed the last of the crime family people who were responsible for his family's death. And I guess that's also kind of why there's anarchy and chaos in Little Sicily because I guess the Nucci's were keeping the local gangs in check. So it sounds like So yeah, no good deed goes unpunished, quote unquote, haha, so to speak.
Well done.
Yeah. And I guess to underscore that in a kind of a weird scene, kind of like the slow motion scene of Frank walking down the street and looks like crime happening all around him, like in slow motion with, left, right, backwards, front, everywhere. And he just walks down the street, doesn't get involved. His face never changes his expression. He's just, just that 1,000 yard stare, just walking down the street, which again, I thought that was kind of weird, but I guess that just kind of the show not tell story methodology. It's like you see the anarchy going on in where he's living because he took out the mafia power, keeping in check the lower, criminals. So, but so I guess it
Well,
worked. I mean,
and you see how disconnected he is, right? He's not the Punisher anymore, so he's not punishing. He's just he's disconnected from that society and ready to, like you said, move on, as we'll get to, and that's not anything that he thinks pertains to him. If I had to nitpick, and again, it's not so much a nitpick of the show as it is like nitpicking my expectations of this and where it fits into the Punisher and Daredevil stuff, right? Because we did just most recently see Frank in Daredevil Born Again season 1, or Daredevil season 4,
yeah,
however you want to look at the order. But I kind of wish we'd have had an indicator there that Frank was still working towards taking out this last crime family. Like if when Matt had interrupted him, they kind of start working together. That Frank had commented about he still had one more family to take out or something, because it just kind of came out of nowhere to wrap this story up. But yeah, your point is that I think it's accurate that he killed the last of the people responsible for his family's death, minus the mother that will obviously come back to haunt him.
yeah. Oops.
So now he has no purpose, right? He tears down the murder wall, packs away the guns because he's done punishing. He's met the goal of punishing the people who killed his family. So what else is there for him to do? And that's where we kind of pick up, right?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the main point of the whole story that he's trying to tell here. When he visits the graves of his family, he's basically saying he's tired, he doesn't know what to do anymore. And I thought at that point, yeah, I mean, you've killed everybody that was linked to your family's murder, which is why you became the Punisher and did what you did. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the ultimate question. What do you do when your vengeance is complete? You know, what do you do now that the whole point of your entire life for the last however many years is over? And then we kind of see that he's about ready to kill himself. He puts a gun to his head. He's about ready to pull the trigger. And we got, I think, some really powerful scenes with him remembering his family and his daughter. And then she appears to him in front of the grave and he stops. He doesn't go through with it. Which also I thought, by the way, a little aside, his daughter, Frank's daughter in the film was played by John Bernthal's real life actual daughter. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I did not know that. That adds a little more to the scene, right? But also, man, could you imagine filming that? That had to have been tough to film that scene with your daughter and trying to convey that. So uh, she did a good job.
So I guess Frank, snaps out of it and decides to shuffle on back home. And on his way back home, he has a vision of his friend and fellow Marine Curtis, who was central to at least the first season of Punisher. And he was in the second one too, right? Yeah, he was in the second one too.
Yeah, second one.
Yeah, because he was helping with the girl that was the whole main point of that season. And yeah, he's the Vision's kind of taunting Frank. He's like, oh, poor Frank, you're all done. What's your purpose now, Marine? And then he walks off or disappears. And I kind of liked how they didn't actually have any of Frank's quote unquote friends, or actually real friends, to be there to help him through all this anguish and whatever. It was all like theater of the mind stuff with Curtis and then later Karen, who popped in briefly.
And that makes it even sadder, right? Because even the true friends in his life, the Karen and Curtis, are not there for him anymore. Whatever happened after the last season of Punisher, Curtis has moved on, and Karen's busy with Matt doing the rest of the season's 2 stuff that takes place at the same time as this. So what's Frank got left, right? His mental uh, images to harass him, but he didn't have anybody to actually comfort him in real life.
Yeah, because for whatever reason, either he didn't reach out to anybody, or they don't know where he's at, or they didn't check up on him. So yeah, he's kind of on his own with just playing through the demons in his head, and then maybe
And he's
con
boy does he have some demons.
yeah, and then maybe conjuring up people that were his friends to help on the other side of that. But I mean, who knows? I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to figure out, right? As we're watching here. And yeah, then that's almost the end of the dialogue for the show. Then the fun starts.
Well, we have one more
Yeah,
bit of
we
dialogue.
got one more full dialogue scene here. Well, a couple later, but a lady in a wheelchair shows up, who we find out at the end is Ma Nucci, meets Frank near his apartment and says, "Yeah, you didn't finish the job. She's still here. You killed
So he
my, you
forgot
killed,
about her.
yeah, you forgot about it. You killed basically everybody in in the crime family except me. And just by the way, I've put a small bounty, which probably wasn't that small, on his head, and every criminal, thug, and whatever are coming for him, and anybody standing in his way. And she's going to enjoy watching him die for killing her family. Didn't quite finish the job there, Frank, or somebody left."
Yeah, yeah. That seems like an oversight, but I do always find these types of stories interesting. You've got a bad guy that inadvertently, because of their revenge or whatever, causes the hero to have a new purpose, right? If she had done nothing, Frank would have continued to be isolated from society. Maybe tried to move on because he did fail to kill himself right before, but who knows if that would have stuck, right? He'd have faded away, tried to find something else, and instead, but she ends up basically forcing him to have purpose.
Yeah, and I did kind of watch some of the two Punisher seasons made like a year ago. It's kind of like went through it just to catch the quote unquote good bits. Um, and yeah, Frank seems to not just go out of his way or even as part of things to kill women. Like first, he'll either knock them out or hurt them, or if he really has to, then he'll kill them. But so I mean, he did. He could have taken out Manucci in the car when he dragged out the last son, but he didn't. So whether that's like his like a code thing or just the way he works or whatever, but it's like, yeah, didn't quite work out here, but
Yeah, that's usually the hero's fatal flaw, right?
didn't quite finish the job. So yeah, he kind of goes back up to his apartment, and yeah, so now before the fun really starts, he's visited by a vision of Karen, and she tells him, she's always here for him, and there's more for him to do. Which I kind of loved how he reacted to Karen. Like he thought he's like, "Are you really here?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he like hugs her. It's kind of like the lifeline that he needed, right? Which, if you remember from, or anybody listening remembers from the Daredevil season when he appeared, season two, to the Punisher seasons, Karen's always been there for him. She's defended him. She's helped him when nobody else wanted to. Even in this latest Daredevil series, Frank and Karen still have something, and so it's like, it's still there. Yeah, even almost a kind of like romantic kind of interest, which season two took care of that. But anyway, so, but yeah,
Yeah,
she's always been there to help pull them back from going over the edge. So I thought, it's great to have her, pop up for a little bit.
yeah. Again, though, since she wasn't really there, it doesn't really help Frank, right? Because he's holding her and then she's gone and all that kind of stuff. The other piece I thought was interesting about that scene was Karen when he imagines Karen there, or it's haunted by Karen there, right? She's wearing the same hoodie that the his wife was in the scenes where he was remembering her. So there's definitely that romantic crossover there, right? Because he's mixing the two a little bit.
Okay, I didn't catch that. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, the hoodie they're using, I think it's one of Frank's like unit hoodies or something from his military days, but that's the same hoodie that Karen shows up wearing.
Yeah, I mean, it may have helped a little bit because it's kind of like there's like the people, kind of last people he visions are people trying to help him, like Curtis and then Karen. It's just maybe he's kind of like trying to get pulled back from the brink, but he's still kind of like, I don't know. And then really, I guess the next bit here, when really the fun totally begins, is all the gang people or thug criminals, whatever, start showing up at the apartment complex and get tearing down doors looking for Frank. And then like across the hall, they're like threatening a mom and her kid, which we saw earlier in the show. And I guess that's when Frank finally snaps or snaps to, or maybe, now thinks of maybe them attacking families like his family was attacked, right? And then finally he goes off, and the next little 15 minutes of the show is peak Punisher, and like to say the least. We won't detail the whole thing because it's kind of pointless, but yeah, it's kind of like what we come to expect from the Punisher. Lots of violence with various weapons, and in this case, he has to take all his weapons from his attackers because he left the key to his body armor and weapons back at his family's grave. Oops.
Yeah, so some great improvisation, right? Supposedly, I mean, it's all choreographed, but it's well choreographed, where it's just like one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. It was like an awesome like sequence. I thought that was well filmed slash choreographed. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously they couldn't do it in the typical one take amazing fight shots because yeah, it's just way too much. Yeah, and I guess of the whole thing, my only nitpick, which I've heard online, people were complaining about like his fall from one roof onto another roof on like some air conditioners or something that everybody said was like bad CGI, but it wasn't CGI. It was a real stunt. The guy really jumped off the roof. They just CGI'd Bernthal's face onto the actor doing the fall. The thing that really got me though was when he fell off or jumped off the scaffolding on the side of the building and bounced off of two school buses. I thought that was a little too unbelievable out of these 65 unbelievable things that just happened in the last 10 minutes. But, but what do you think about the entire choreograph of blood or whatever you want to call it?
yeah, so overall, like as I was kind of indicating earlier, right? I thought it was very well done. I loved he starts out with like I think he sets fire to the door or something, or he ends up getting set fire to or something because they poured gasoline in the
Right.
room,
Yeah.
and he ends up using that to take people out, and it just goes. It's like you can't. I don't want to call it like a constant upgrade, right? Because he has to go back and forth between picking up guns, using the guns, running them dry, then he has to go to a knife because he takes a knife off of the next guy, right? So it's not like he's constantly getting better guns. It's not like a video game where you're leveling up. He's just like whatever is at hand. And the choreograph like whatever. The sequence of all that was I think really well done. I just enjoyed every minute of it. I will say, and I get what you're saying about the unbelievable things and amongst unbelievable things, but I guess those type of scenes don't usually bother me. If you kind of if you want to apply realism, the 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 hits and the jumps and the falls and the beatings that Frank and Matt, both take throughout their shows as guys without superpowers, it's inherently unrealistic. I mean, both of them get hurt and would have lasting trauma of joints and all that kind of stuff. That they heal in between scenes, which is fine because we don't want to watch somebody in a wheelchair, right? Like that can't. I mean, if you're Professor X, we want to watch you in a wheelchair. But you know what I'm saying? Like a Punisher that can't move isn't any fun. So we want to see these characters continue to be unpowered but still superheroes. And I just roll with it. I think is what I'm trying to say with all that because I kind of expect it to have that slight acceptance of disbelief.
Yeah. And we've seen like in the Daredevil show here and other Punishers, like basically he like takes a whole bottle of ibuprofen in one shot, because that's how much in pain he's probably in the whole time.
Right, but what does that do to your system
Right.
by
Yeah.
itself?
And here, I mean, he takes like a ball bat to the ribs, and then you never see it again. Like he's not like, oh, my ribs, whatever. He gets stabbed, he gets shot. It's like it's typical Punisher. Like he gets punished too, but he just keeps going. Yeah, and then so then after bouncing off the buses, he's on the street finally. I thought it was kind of funny as people are still coming up to him. He's just like, oh, come on, which is kind of funny. Yeah, it's like, oh man, and then, he sees Monucci down the road there who, yeah, doesn't look so happy now that Frank's still not dead yet. And, so her bodyguard wheels her off to the car. He starts to go after her to, finish the job finally. But then he hears and sees that the coffee shop owner and his wife and daughter are being attacked down the street. So, it's your typical, like, what's that, like the princess and the tiger thing? Like, what do you do, right? Do you finish your vengeance or do you go save a family and prevent them from going through what you had to go through? So, of course, Frank chooses to save the family with the most graphic use of a ballpoint pen ever filmed, I believe.
Well, I definitely won't argue it, but I would posit that this is where we start to see the transition from just survival, right? and possibly some vengeance to, and I'm going to use air quotes here, like the hero version of the Punisher, right? He's now choosing not to just act in defense of his life or out of anger, but now he's actually protecting someone else in this rendition.
It's starting to finally click in here, which we'll get to. And yeah, when it's all over, the coffee shop owner's daughter gives Frank the little flower craft that she was making earlier in the show that we saw in the first time we went to the coffee shop. And then he later puts that on the grave of his daughter and says that maybe she was with him today and maybe he'll keep going. And then, as you know from the Punisher TV series, he recites his daughter's favorite bedtime story, the one batch, two batch, penny and dime. And yeah, it seems that Frank's kind of more at peace now than when we met him at the beginning of the show, at least as much as you can be at peace with what he's gone through.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, right? Now we have a purpose for him to continue punishing people for. Like it's not just going to be about him, but what goes next.
And then the final scene, because, we have to have closure. So remember that thug that killed the homeless guy's dog, the homeless Marine's dog at the beginning? Well, he's about to assault a nice couple just walking down the street, mind their own business. And he gets taken out by Frank in full Punisher gear. And by that, I mean, I think this is the most prominent, best ever Punisher skull painted on a body armor that we've seen yet with this version of the character. And just for further symbolism, he kills the guy right in front of the closed down Nucci restaurant. So, no symbolism at all there, huh? But yeah,
which
but
I missed, but yeah.
yeah, but yeah, the Punisher's back. So, what'd you think about the ending here?
I think as I kind of started our analysis with, it's he's back in the groove, right? He's got his groove back, and I think we're ready for integration into the larger MCU. Overall, enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, he's finally made peace with, yeah, he's mostly accomplished his goal. There's one left, but even if he or when, so it'd be if when he deals with Nucci, he's not going to go anywhere. There's still criminals to punish, people getting assaulted by criminals or whatever that he wants to protect and not having to go through the hell he's gone through in his family. So yeah, the Punisher is redeemed, so to speak. And yeah, I guess if you want to talk about like where we or where they say this fits into the timeline and where we think it fits in. I read, I think on the Wikipedia page that the show that they said this takes place concurrently, quote unquote, before and during the events of Daredevil Born Again season two. Okay, sure. I mean, yes, they were filming this during that time, so that's why Bernthal wasn't in season two. So yeah, that's when you want to say it's made. Sure, okay. I mean, it does kind of like you said, set things up for Frank's appearance in like what 2 months from now as we record this in the new Spider-Man movie. So okay, I don't really have an opinion on when if that's when you say it took place. Sure, okay.
But I will say I'm excited to see how they kind of soften Frank up for general audiences, right? I mean, if you we have seen some of the trailers or the trailer at this point for Spider-Man, so we can kind of see their interaction a little bit. But obviously, we're gonna have to see how he fits into the MCU tone, right? Because it can't be all this in the big screen and still keep the Spider-Man tone. So I also hope we get another Bernthal written and directed show or maybe a series to continue the darker Punisher storylines.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure there won't be a ballpoint pen incident in the new Spider-Man movie.
Exactly, right? I mean, they're the tone's just totally different.
Yeah, I mean, and they do kill people in the Marvel movies, like Avengers. They're just going after the Chitauri and other things like the Last Infinity stuff. It's basically a war. But yeah, Spider-Man's a whole different kind of thing. It's like Spider-Man's not like the mass killer or just a killer in general, right? That's not anything he's ever done. So yeah, how do you mix in the Punisher? Like I don't know how much he's involved in the movie, like just for a couple scenes. Is he part of this whole thing? Like I don't know, right? But yeah, how do you make that semi-family friendly, quote unquote, because it's Spider-Man?
Right. Yeah. The tone is the trick, how they're going to balance that.
And to your point about Bernthal and the writing, which I thought it was pretty good with this episode. Apparently, I also read that he left Daredevil Born Again season one soon after he was cast during the initial phase because he didn't like the direction that they were taking Frank. And then after they changed things around and got like the new writer and the new showrunner stuff and altered split it up from one giant season to two seasons, he came back and worked with the new showrunner on how Frank was being portrayed. So he's really protective of Frank, and he's got an idea, and he knows how he thinks Frank should be written. So if he does do more stuff, yeah, of course I'll watch it because he knows the character. I mean, he's got it down. I mean, if there's like perfect MCU casting, like Hugh Jackman, like Robert Downey Jr., that kind of thing, he's up there with the just perfect casting for the part.
Yeah, and I think he said that, right, that if he comes back as the Punisher for a series, at least it'll be something that he writes in the direction he wants. So he kind of has him there.
Anything else you want to mention about the 20 minutes of the dialogue and 20 minutes of graphic violence of Punisher one last
No,
kill?
other than let's bring it on, right? Obviously, it's not his last kill, so bring on the next series. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, 'cause I guess until you really stop, there's always one last one, or something like that. All right. So yes, next time on the podcast here, we've put it off as long as we possibly could. But next time we're going to tackle the first part of the Farscape Peacekeeper Wars miniseries, which would be part one of two. So the penultimate piece of televised Farscape. If you wanted any more Farscape after part two dropped, you would have to have read the comic books that came out afterwards. But other than that, we're ending, I guess, 4 years or like 5 or 6 of our years here covering the show.
I was promised there would be no math.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think that's how we did it. It could be longer.
That would be weird not having that, but I'm sure we'll figure our way into something new.
Yeah, because also, like we said, there's the Darth Maul Disney Plus show. I think yesterday or today, the new Amazon Spider-Man Noir series started. So there'd be plenty of things coming. If we want to do movies, we got movies coming out this summer. So
Yeah, because believe it or not, we probably have some thoughts on Star Wars and other media.
yeah, we were talking for about what 10 minutes before we started recording, just about Star Wars in general, because we both watched the Mandalorian and Grogu movie over the weekend, and yeah, just our general thoughts of what happened after Return of the Jedi, or or before, depending on how you want to look at the timeline. But yeah,
Yeah,
so plenty of
wibbly wobbly,
things.
timey wimey.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so your homework next time is jump back into Farscape, Peacekeeper Wars, find it wherever you can find it. I think it's on Amazon, might be on Shout TV, but look for it. That's what we're gonna cover. And one more after that, and then bye bye Farscape.
Unless we
So
just go back to episode one and start all over again. No,
yeah, with how we know now, like, what do you think about it? And yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll do like a recap or like a something to wrap up the whole thing. I don't know. We'll figure it out because that's what we do here. We just figure it out as we go.
it's randomly,
Yep.
occasionally.
Yep. So that's your homework, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.